many Miss South Africa contestants were targeted with heritage sort of based attacks when the top 30 were initially announced, including but not limited to Leila Zubair, who is of Lebanese heritage, Palesa, Sherry Wang, who's Asian obviously, and also pretty much all of the white contestants, which most of that was definitely ridiculous and unfounded. But with that said, even a broken clock is correct twice a day, which brings me to Chidimma Adetshina. Chidimma was apparently born in Soweto. I say apparently because we are going to be getting to that later on. She's 23 years old, she has a son, and even though she was allegedly married previously and has a child, this does not whatsoever disqualify her from entering Miss South Africa. Miss South Africa has been allowing all women for a while now. You can be married, you can be divorced, you can even be pregnant and compete at Miss South Africa nowadays. Some ill-informed netizens were coming for Chidimma for the fact that she had a son, which meant previously that she couldn't compete, but since those rules were changed a couple of years ago actually, she was fully in her right to compete at Miss South Africa when it comes to that regard. Chidimma's parents are not South African, which is where all of this controversy came from. Her dad is Nigerian and her mother is Mozambican. It is disputed whether or not her mother does have some Zulu heritages. For those of you who don't know, the Zulu nation is a tribe in South Africa. So there are some disputes as to whether Chidimma's mother has Zulu heritage, but honestly, we don't know. We may possibly never know. But at the request of the Miss South Africa organization themselves, the Ministry of Home Affairs have conducted an investigation as to whether or not Chidimma's South African citizenship status is valid or not, with the written permission of Chidimma and her mother as well. Under South African law, anyone born before 1995 automatically qualifies as a South African citizen. Unfortunately, Chidimma was born after 1995, which meant that she would have had to have been born not only on South African soil, but with at least one parent being either a South African citizen or a legal South African permanent residence. Other means of becoming a South African citizen include naturalization, which means that you have been a legal permanent resident in South Africa for so long that later on you can just apply for citizenship, which by the way is also open to Chidimma as of right now. The Miss South Africa organization doesn't take the status of citizenship lightly. You must be a legal citizen of South Africa in order to partake in the Miss South Africa pageant. They require all of their contestants to produce legal documentation proving their citizenships. They do this during the initial entering process. That's how seriously they take this. So obviously one can assume that Chidimma was able to provide legal documentation in terms of an ID or a passport or something like that in order to prove that she is a South African citizen. She must have been able to provide this to the satisfaction of the Miss South Africa organization when entering. She did come very far in the competition, and I suppose that somehow the Miss South Africa organization were later on growing suspicious. Somehow their suspicions were raised by someone or something, perhaps even some of the accusations going around online. This is why they probably then initiated the investigation by the Ministry of Home Affairs into Chidimma's status as a citizen. I must also add that the Miss South Africa organization pretty much removed all traces of this fan vote that they have going on after the 6th episode of Crown Chasers revealed that the public, the viewers of Miss South Africa, would be the ones responsible for voting a woman into the top 10 of Miss South Africa. Obviously, this is a very serious situation, and from what has been uncovered thus far, it does seem like Chidimma's mother committed identity theft and fraud all the way back in 2001. Chidimma's mother seems to have, presumably with the assistance of someone in government, stolen the identity of another South African woman who actually subsequently allegedly had issues registering her own child. As I've said before, anyone born in South Africa after 1995 also need to have at least one parent be a citizen or legal permanent resident. And this would actually explain why her mother would feel the need to commit identity theft and fraud in order to ensure Chidimma's successful registration and for her to become a legal citizen of South Africa. This is why she would have had the documentation to give to the Miss South Africa organization proving that she was a legal citizen, because technically if her mother was successful in registering her all the way back in 2001 when she was still an infant, this would have given her all of the correct documentation in order to present to the Miss South Africa organization, who would have been none the wiser. It could also be the case that Chidimma wasn't even born on South African soil at all, but that seems very unlikely. Obviously, whatever the case, I view Chidimma as being wholly innocent in this situation. Obviously, she was a literal infant when all of this took place. She had the correct documentation to present the Miss South Africa organization, so I don't blame the Miss South Africa organization for this situation either, because I've seen many people criticizing the Miss South Africa organization for having a weak vetting process, but how were they to know? The literal government didn't even know also for 23 years. So how was the Miss South Africa organization to know about all of this? It's not like any of this would have even showed up on a police clearance on Chidimma. People also seem to be thinking that this whole situation could have been avoided had the Miss South Africa organization been nationalized, meaning had the Miss South Africa organization been placed under the supervision and control of the government, which that just straight up doesn't make any sense, because are we talking about the same government who also did not know about this identity theft and fraud for 23 years? And not only were they unaware, it is highly likely and suggestible that members of our own government were complicit in assisting Chidimma's mother in this alleged identity theft and fraud. Are these the people who we are now calling on to be the saviors and take over the Miss South Africa organization due to their faulty vetting process? The government has enough problems to deal with. Please leave the Miss South Africa organization as the private, successful and profitable entity that it is. Thank you very much. A word that we have seen and heard mentioned a lot is prima facie. Prima facie, scary Latin legal language, which basically means that on first impression of this investigation, the opinion that Chidimma's mother actually committed these crimes are being seen and accepted as true until proven otherwise, perhaps even in a court of law. We'll have to see. Honestly, for Chidimma, her Miss South Africa journey is the least of her problems at this point in time. For all we know, she could be finding this all out today with the rest of us, which is insane. This investigation is actually still ongoing, so the final verdict is yet to be determined. And actually, as I'm working on this video, Chidimma did withdraw from Miss South Africa. But to be honest with you, I don't think that the Miss South Africa organization would have encouraged her to compete and be there with her family on stage anyway, not due to any backlash, but due to their actual physical safety. Chidimma's withdrawal does leave open an extra spot in the top 10, which means that technically both Kebalipile and Kirsten could go through to the top 10. I don't know whether or not this might happen, because that would mean that so many people at this point would have wasted so much money voting for either or. Perhaps the Miss South Africa organization could just say, you know what, we'll have it be a top 9 and the most voted for lady can still go through. But with all that being said, I do feel bad for Chidimma, guys, because I did like her. I did truly like her, and the odds are she is only finding this all out with the rest of us. I don't know why her mother would have given written permission to be investigated, knowing what they would probably uncover. That's a bit strange to me, but I do feel like poor Chidimma. I feel sorry for her because she was literally an infant. Like, I cannot be held responsible for crimes my parents committed the year I was born. Like, even if they were crimes committed to benefit me, it's still bizarre. It's bizarre. I feel so bad for Chidimma because obviously there aren't going to be any legal repercussions for her, but it has all probably been so stressful for the poor woman. I do feel so sad for her. Obviously now I'm gonna have to go and rework my final prediction, so I will be back with you guys on that soon. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I tried my best to articulate my opinions in this video about all of this going on. I do feel bad for Chidimma. I do still stand by what I said about people need to stop attacking people for their heritage online, because like I said, it wasn't just Chidimma. Okay, Chidimma's mom ended up allegedly doing some shady things back in 2001, but it wasn't just Chidimma getting picked on and harassed due to her non-South African heritage. Okay, there were so many girls in the top 30 getting absolutely trashed for not being South African enough. So let me know what you guys think about this situation. It's obviously very sad. I'm so sorry for my sunny disposition. Despite all of the sadness, I'm actually in a good mood today, which actually makes this news extra horrible because, you know, it's dampened my spirit a bit, but not enough. I'm going to the gym now. Let me know what you guys think about all of this. I'd love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.